My name is Sarah Fletcher. I get an opportunity to talk a little bit about hospitality with all of you, and I am very excited. Uh, there's going to be a few videos after this that kind of go into the how of hospitality. How are you supposed to be, or how are you called to be hospitable to neighbors? How are you called to be hospitable in our community? And how does Hope Community as a church practice hospitality? But before we get to all of those, I think important questions to ask are, what is hospitality and why should we practice hospitality? And as I was diving into all of this information, I think one of the first things that I went to, one of the first books I went to, was the gospel. And it's amazing to see that the why and the what was answered very quickly in that book, and so in scripture. And so I'm excited to dive in with you a little bit right now and kind of just see how different themes came up through the studying that I have done. And so that's kind of what I'm going to walk through. There is a lot more in scripture that I'm not even going to touch on that I would encourage you to dive more into, especially within the context of what this topic is talking about. Where else do you see in scripture hospitality? What else? What's the deeper root of hospitality? And as you dive into those things, please let me know all the findings that you see. And I'm going to share a little bit of those things that I have found with you. Some of those themes. So the first theme that I kind of looked through and saw through scripture was this idea that hospitality is about welcoming people, specifically welcoming people into one another's homes. I found this verse, the story of Mary and Martha. You might be familiar with those two women, but it's found in Mark chapter 10, verse 38 through 41. And it says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So there's a couple things that pull out from that verse, but specifically this idea that Martha and Mary welcomed Jesus into their home. And now, as I was thinking about this concept of welcoming people into their homes, I kind of wondered, why would that be important? What does that do for someone? And I think one of the biggest things that idea does is it knocks down a lot of barriers. It says, this is not my home. This is for you to come in as well. And so this idea that what's ours is really not ours, it's the Lord's. And so it's this idea of welcoming somebody in and giving them a space to talk, a space to eat food, a space to listen. I think about all the times I've been welcomed into somebody's home and just what that's meant to me. And I'm sure that you all have maybe felt that same way as well. Being welcomed into somebody's home means feeling valued, feeling respected, feeling like there's purpose. And I think that little action of welcoming welcoming someone into your home, if that's what that response can be, how beautiful that is. And even just seeing in this passage the opportunities that come with welcoming that Mary and Martha had while they welcomed Jesus into their homes. What beauty that was, that he was able to talk with them, and how sometimes the distraction of making our house perfect or all the preparation that we can put into bringing people into our space, how that can actually be a distraction from what the point is of being able to be in community, being able to be in conversation with those people that are here in our homes. Another thing that I saw throughout scripture was that hospitality isn't just a one-time thing. It's not just something that we can just say like, oh, you come over and now like, it was really nice to know you and really good to meet you. It's something that takes work. It's something that takes time. It's something that is just takes a lot of energy, and we see this exemplified in 2 Kings 4:8-11. One day, Elisha went up to Shunem, and a well-to-do woman was there who urged him to stay for a meal. So whenever he came by, he stopped there to eat. She said to her husband, "I know that this man who often comes our way is a holy man of God. Let's make a small room on the roof and put it a bed and a table and a lamp for him. Then he can stay there whenever he comes to us." One day, when Elisha came, he went up to his room and lay down there. And I think that this is an awesome example of that somebody went out of their way not only to invite somebody into their home, but to continuously, every time that he came, to invite them over for a meal. Not only come into the home, but I'm going to prepare you a meal. And then going above and beyond that to also welcome him in to stay. And to stay for as long as he needs, to have a bed there, to have comfort there. And just even this idea of how are we as believers, how are we as people who love Jesus, welcoming others into our home and allowing them to stay and allowing them to be a part of our own family. I know that I've been able, coming to Hope, been able to experience that with some families, being able to be welcomed into their home, not only once, but being welcomed into their home, into their family, and that extra added love and that extra added welcoming, what that does and who that only reflects is the Lord. And so even seeing this woman who helped Elisha and went out of her comfort zone, went out of her own flesh and said, "Yes, come in multiple times," and just seeing how beautiful of a representation of the Lord that truly is. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about here and that I saw is seeing that it's not convenient. Hospitality is not something that is going to always be comfortable, and is not always something that is going to be where you don't have to lay down your own preferences. I think we see that by example in both of these passages that I read, and also in just the way that Jesus led his life here on earth. We see how he did not only go to the people that were comfortable, he did not only eat or go into the homes of people that were socially acceptable, he actually did the opposite. He went into homes of people that were not socially acceptable, the lowest of the lows, and he welcomed them, and he was welcomed in to their homes as in return, and how beautiful that example is. And so I think my biggest question to reflect on for all of you is, how are we people that are choosing to live by these themes? How are we people that are inviting one another into our home? How are we people that are not doing the comfortable thing, realizing that hospitality is not convenient, and that it does take time, it does take energy, and it does take a big effort? And how are we people that are doing that well? And so as you answer that question, as you reflect on that, my prayer for you is to be able to have opportunities to practice hospitality, whether that be in the videos or whether that be through ways that you see in the videos to come, whether that be with your neighbors or whether that be with your family, or whether that be with both and people in our community. That's just my biggest prayer for all of us. Thank you.